Even this blurry face for radio couldn't wait on this one right here. You deserve this one just like we deserve to watch some men's basketball over the weekend. That naturally means it's time to talk football and FanDuel and say thank you.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by Nissan. Get in on the action with the right drive, the right passion, the right patience. Nissan is going to get you down the road, the best, right here, right now. So make sure you take the next corner the right way, whether it's in a Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, Nissan Armada, or just build your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. So we're not going to talk about men's basketball right off the top because that's slightly depressing. And because we've been dealing with some snafus over the last few days, I don't want to hit you with depression. I want to hit you with a little bit of excitement. And thank you to FanDuel for gifting us this level of excitement. Now, this isn't the first time FanDuel's hooked it up. As far as the over-under goes, we already know we're hammering the over there. 7.5 win total is a win total that Mike Gundy typically should be able to do walking backwards in his sleep. So we know we've got that one in the bag, as they say. Well, now we get another one, compliments of FanDuel, and that is the odds to make the Big 12 championship game. And the odds for Oklahoma State are plus 1,600, which puts us right around 8th or 9th in the Big 12. So based off of the likelihood of the teams getting to the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State has like the 8th or 9th best odds to get to the title game. Now, you could have a multitude of conversations. One of the conversations you could have is, well, how crazy disrespectful. Not only disrespectful, but just kind of nonsensical as well. How does anybody that appreciates the game of football or almost any sport in general, how do you look at a team that won over 10 games and has over 90% of the roster returning and has over 20 starters returning, and you say that they're barely going to be a 500 level ball club in the conference, or at least halfway? We're a halfway point player in the conference with all of those facts. It's kind of ridiculous. We all know this. But at the same time, this is directly in line with the conversation of capitalization, right? If we capitalize, this is a gift that we don't continue to get anymore. Just like, Utah, yeah, it's great. They're starting out the season. The expert punditry has them walking into the Big 12 title game. And if it all works out for them, then they started the season the same way that, they came into the conference, which is made for championships. That's great if that happens. But if you're Utah and Cam Rising goes down and you have another big injury somewhere, that could derail your season so greatly that anything less than 7.5 wins would typically be a disappointment. I would rather be where we are as Oklahoma State fans. Again, the disrespect, it doesn't entirely make sense. There's nothing statistically that indicates Oklahoma State should start the season barely halfway in the eyes of the Big 12. But let's instead of getting irritated about how ridiculous the respect is, let's get excited about it because it is still an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to capitalize on the money-making potential, but realistically, not just trying to pump you in the money department. Let's take a legitimate opportunity to appreciate this, because this could go away after this year. If Oklahoma State is as successful as we think that they should be on a year-to-year level basis, this number may never happen again. If Oklahoma State continues at the rate that it has been for the last better part of 2 decades now, Oklahoma State is not going to be projected this low, possibly ever again. I mean, ever is a long time. But if we end up in Arlington and we capitalize on that, let's say we win the trophy this time, we know recruiting is automatically going to get better. Of how rare this could potentially be. We could be looking in 5, 6, 7 years saying, oh man, I wish Oklahoma State would get some long odds so I could make some money. Right? That's the only upside to this is the money-making potential. The other upside is that if on its head, perception, then you see better roads in recruiting. You should be able to see a better evaluation of the recruits that do commit to Oklahoma State. Again, it's the brand thing. You get a little bit of an extra half a star, quarter star, whatever, predicated upon where you commit or where you're going to sign your letter of intent. You're not really going to get that a lot at Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma State is always being viewed as an underdog. And I know Utah fans, have recently said that they're used to being the underdog, that Oklahoma State can't underdog the ultimate underdog of Utah. But if you look right now, there's a lot of rat poison surrounding Utah. There's not much around Oklahoma State. I mean, there's a decent amount of us, right? The media podcast show type people that are picking Oklahoma State to have a very, very, very good season. I think all of us, unlike last year, right? All of us in this realm are picking the over at 7.5. I think all of us would pick the over on finishing better than 8th place in the Big 12, 7th place in the Big 12. Call it what you want to call it. With this amount of returning starters, with this amount of talent coming back, with all of the continuity and consistency we have in the coaching staff, and the body by glass system is continuing to show the fruits of its labor, anything less than an appearance in Arlington would be disappointing, but not to the national punditry, and potentially not to your pocketbook either. Again, this is an opportunity here that we might not get. When's the next time? If Oklahoma State does what they're supposed to do this year, we take care of business, we end up in Arlington, and the recruiting numbers go up just because of what the Pac-12 is going through, what the ACC is going through. If it goes up again just because of the talent that Oklahoma State's going to bring in, year out, whenever you combine all of these things, it makes Oklahoma State very appealing. Just like it's appealing for you now to get in on this potential. Because as much as we're hooting and hollering about how ridiculous it is right now, again, 5, 6, 7 years, we as fans can be kicking ourselves. Like, hey, do you remember back in the days when Oklahoma State was picked 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever in the Big 12? Do you remember those days where we would overachieve? And if you were one of the few people that were able to bet some money on Oklahoma State overachieving, you did very well. We don't want to, or at least I don't want to look back at this instance 6, 7, 8 years from now and saying, you know what? Should have put some money down on that. I knew Oklahoma State was going to do better than whatever the number was. This is that opportunity. We may never, I would be surprised if Oklahoma State is ever projected this low again in the Big 12. It's a possibility. Obviously, you never say never. But the continuity that we have as a team, as a staff, and now is obviously a university, the Cowboy culture has been reinvigorated. It's kind of been revamped and rebuilt. We're ready to see all of it. And this could catapult us into never having these type of numbers again. So don't miss out, right? Get in. Well, the getting is good. Right now, the getting is really good on Oklahoma State. It's a safe bet, 7.5 over. It's a safe bet us finishing better than 8th in the conference. Those are safe bets, right? If you didn't want to jump out on the Cody hammer the overledge last year, okay, fine. But this year, it's time to make the leap. It's time to make the jump. It's time for you to do it. Just like it's also time for you to make sure that your rig is squared away. Now, y'all know recently I went through a little bit of a difficulty with the vehicular transportation. Got it squared away, thankfully, but I was real close to talking about the trade-in. And if you're the kind of driver that likes to push things as far as possible, even in adventure, your next adventure could be around the corner. Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with capabilities to take you to your next adventure and beyond. The 2024 Nissan Rogue, it's perfect for city drives and great escapes. If you're looking for the days of connecting your phone and having the Google Assistant, Google Map, Google Play Store, well, it's all built in right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And if you want to go big time with it, well, you could look at a Pathfinder or an Armada, right? The Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. If you picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class style and a luxury, well, they've got you covered. Tow bigger things and explore further with the 2024 Nissan Armada. Of course, you already know about the Pathfinder, right? With the impressive seating arrangements up to 8, the expansive cargo capacity, enhanced available four-wheel drive capabilities, 284 horsepower, and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. So take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada on the next big adventure that you're wanting to do by going to shop NissanUSA.com. Again, to shop NissanUSA.com. Go there now to start your next big adventure. Make sure you do it in a Nissan. A big adventure for Oklahoma State always has been, always will be, who's in the wide receiver room and what it could potentially look like, because the conversation for wide receiver, regardless of what anybody else wants to say out there, does have Oklahoma State directly in it. Whether you want to talk about Alabama or Ohio State or anybody else that produces an exorbitant amount of wide receivers on a pretty consistent basis, even Georgia, Oklahoma State is in that conversation. And that's exactly why Kasey Dunn is still classified as a legend nationally. That's probably one of the bigger reasons why Kasey Dunn still has a job. So this is a good year for Kasey Dunn to prove that part of what he can do is still the enhancement of wide receivers. Now, there was a publication last night or this morning that put Brennan Presley as one of the top 10 returning wide receivers in the country. I think they had him listed as the 8th best returning wide receiver in the country. And we all know that Brennan Presley is probably a little bit better than that. We also know that Brennan Presley has not had the opportunity to eclipse the 1,000-yard mark. Last season, there was a mistake made statistically, and he was told he'd already got his 1,000th yard, so he got pulled out of the bowl game. Oops, somebody's bad. Didn't happen. Didn't get his 1,000th yard. Before the bowl game. But he got pulled out, and it was what it was. So now Brennan Presley is definitely on a mission to be another one of these Oklahoma State wide receivers in the long line of them that have had 1,000-yard wide receiver seasons. Brennan Presley had 951 yards, so we know he was just shy of that. DeZaun Stribling was not only the best wide receiver on the roster, but he was clearly, statistically, going to have the best opportunity to eclipse that 1,000-yard mark this previous season before he got injured. Luckily, it was super early on enough that we got to see the emergence of a Leon Johnson III. Now, we all know how that looked from a national perspective as opposed to what it looks like in Stillwater. We know we are very used to seeing a quote-unquote third-string wide receiver just show up and show out like nobody's business. And then, of course, the natural question is, well, why wasn't he playing as much? So on and so forth. Another example there is going to be Rashod Owens. Guys, there's a reason. I know Sorry, words are hard for me. There's a reason why Rashod Owens was relegated to the backup style of role. And I would say it's pretty clear, and we have a lot of evidentiary proof it was due to drop passes. Well, you see now that when he gets more opportunities, he can make some crazy plays. He still does have a decent number of drop passes, but it shows that the depth we have, Oklahoma State wide receiver core, is typically very good. I mean, heck, we saw it, I would say, in 2022 to some degree as well. That drop-off is not typically very significant at Oklahoma State from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 3. Is there going to be a difference? Of course. Is there going to be some level of drop-off? Likely, absolutely yes. Makes sense. But it's not all that big, or at least not typically. Not only do I think Brennan Presley is going to give himself an opportunity to have a 1,000-yard receiver season, I think that DeZaun Stribling is definitely going to be able to do the same. If they both stay healthy, right, the opportunities are, I don't want to say endless, but they're going to be there. And then on top of that, you do have Rashod Owens. You do have, who I still think, has way more upside athletically and talent, but that's Talyn Shettron. You know, I like the youngsters that we have. Mason Gilkey. I think that if he can kind of beef up a little bit, right, if he can somehow get to that 190, 195 pound range, I like all the intangibles. I like the athleticism. I like his ability to high point and go after the football. I do definitely think that we all know Cameron Hurd is somebody who's right there, waiting in the wings, right around the corner. You got to take into consideration bringing in Dwayne Lofton over from Virginia Tech. Should be able to provide a lot of that spark for the slot receiver room to get more out of a Cameron Hurd. But yeah, this is a season of redemption for the wide receiver room because clearly Brennan Presley is viewed as a very, very good wide receiver. But he's not in that next tier, at least perception-wise. DeZaun Stribling could be. He's got the frame. He's got the size. He's got the speed. Now he's going to have more or less an entire year under the glass factory. And part of rehab in and of itself is redeveloping, certain muscle groups, or re-strengthening muscle groups. So that transition should be pretty seamless. The question is, can you have too much of a good thing? Because we know what we have at running back. So, of course, people are naturally going to be inclined to try to shut down Ollie Gordon. They're at least going to think, if you can stop Ollie Gordon, you're bound and determined to win the game. That's going to open things up for the passing game, regardless of whether it's Alan Bowman, Garrett Rangel, or Zane Flores. This is an opportunity for our wide receiver room to prove that position at Oklahoma State University is still going to be something that's very, very sought after. If this is somewhat reminiscent of 2011 times, where you could lean on Joe Randall, well, you could also hit some quick slants, hit some quick 5-and-outs, throw a couple bubble screens, then take a couple deep shots. And when you took those deep shots and you had guys like James Washington, Marcel Aitman, Tylan Wallace, it made it very easy. We don't know, as a collective fan base, we don't know what kind of talent we have at wide receiver because we don't see a large portion of our wide receiver room getting involved last year. Last year, we had to lean on Ollie, and some people seem to have some reservations there, but even to me, that seems a little wild because we have 5 official returning linemen plus another who started several years already, plus another who started several years at another Big 12 Power 5 school. So it's essentially 7 Power 5 Division I starting offensive linemen. So if you do have some nicks and some bruises and some guys go down here and there, should be okay. Not to mention, we all loved the emergence of Jack Dean, the true freshman out of Arizona last season, to kind of give himself an opportunity to compete for the 3 deep. Well, he's back. And you go look at the other side of the offensive line. We've got some guys over there that have some maneuverability. If you want to take into consideration that Isaiah Glass could potentially slide over, it doesn't really matter what happens with that side of the ball. I think we all know that this season should be different. Maybe FanDuel and some of the other, props companies out there, they don't see what we see. But again, that's okay. That's okay because FanDuel has found a way to show up and help us out. So you need to do yourself a favor and help yourself out by going and getting FanDuel today. All you got to do is download the app. And you know that it's a good idea to do so because we're going to hammer the over on the over-under. We're going to hammer the over on the odds of whether Oklahoma State's going to make it to a Big 12 title game. But even if you're not necessarily talking about football because basketball season is still right here, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. All you got to do, bet $5 or more, and it's $150 back in bonus bets. So whether you want to bet on your favorite NBA players, NBA teams, Oklahoma State, Big 12 title, whatever, get in on the action with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive player props, over, unders, who's going to make the next basket, and more. By going to FanDuel.com/locked-on. Go there now, shoot your next shot, but make sure it's your best shot with FanDuel.com/locked-on because FanDuel is the official sports partner of the NBA. Yeah, we all know that FanDuel's kind of the bee's knees trying to help us out in this situation. That's all it is. Maybe they have the inside track on everybody on this channel, right? All of y'all getting hooked up. Last year we had to hammer the over, and we got to help some bank accounts. This year we're trying to do the same thing. So it's okay to be selfish. If you watch this show, FanDuel knows you watch the show. They're trying to hook you up with this thing right here, right now, by giving us these wonderful numbers that we all need to explore. Just like you need to explore Oklahoma State Baseball Stadium. O'Brate is the best stadium in the country. We've had this conversation. It is designed to host super regionals. We started the season pretty sketchy. Whenever you lose a series to Sam Houston State, again, we'd had conversations before that series that we were not going to sweep them. They're a good club that went 22-8 last year and in their conference, and they played in the Baton Rouge Regional or Louisiana Regional. They beat Tulane. They were a good ball club. Should we have won the series? Yes. Should we have swept them? No, right? Okay, losing the series, not great. You immediately had the same questions as typical, which is Rob Walton. What is he doing? What does he look at? Is he hammered drunk 24/7? These are viable conversations. And then the beginning of the season went much of the same. But then you have the win against number 2 in the country, Arkansas. So it's just like the ripping of your heartstrings. Are we back or are we not? Is it the same old Rob Walton? Is it something new? Well, we have shown with the win in Arkansas the ability to play small ball. We have now shown with the weekend sweep, yes, it was against Central Michigan, so it's a team we should have swept, okay? But the bats came to life. If you can play small ball and you have a decent amount of power, that should make up for any of the deficiencies or at least some of the deficiencies you might have on the mound. And we've got some dudes. Brian Holiday obviously started off the season hot. He appears to be the real deal. We all know Aiden Miola is one of those, All-American style guys waiting in the wings. We all know that the middle infield needs to be a little bit more crisp, but so far they look pretty good. The outfield's going to be fine. There's going to be guys like Colin Brueggemann, Tyler Wolfert that are asked to do certain things, and typically when they're asked to do those things, they deliver. More small ball has been a question for a large portion of the fan base. Even the ones who've been happy with the pitching have been curious about the ability to play small ball because it happens almost every year. We end up in a regional against Oral Roberts or a UC Santa Barbara or a UC Davis or a Dallas Baptist that lays down buns and just hits people over and doesn't overcomplicate things, doesn't necessarily have errors, doesn't have a bunch of players that are throwing 97 miles an hour. They just do the little things right. And they move runners over and they sacrifice themselves at times. And Oklahoma State's been all about power arms, power bats, power on the speed bases or power speed on the bases. It's been all about, out-muscling. If we know maybe Rob Walton isn't the same Rob Walton he was at ORU, right? And we all do know that because we've seen plenty of that one. If you can incorporate a good blend of abilities to play small ball and go yard and jack up 19 runs, which we've done a couple times now, okay, cool. Then maybe you have a product that can grow throughout the course of the season. You definitely don't want to hit your peak this early, of course, but you don't want to be dragging your head through the doldrums either, because seeding still matters. Therefore, your record still matters. Where you get seeded is in conjunction with whether you get to host a regional or a super regional or so on and so forth. That stuff matters. And if you're trying to pack out O-break and you're trying to get everything out of O-break it's supposed to be, then again, these things do matter. These games do matter. It's okay. Baseball's a long season. You have a long amount of time to mix and match and figure things out. But if you mix and match and figure it out too daggone long, maybe there's not enough meat on the taters. Right? Not enough meat on the taters. But softball, you keep doing your thing. I still am a little concerned about not having like a true shutdown ace. Okay. But as our old ace, Kelly Maxwell, just found out, with the ace of softball in the Lady Sooners, sometimes you got to find different ways to get her did. And the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns did just that by taking down the Lady Sooners. We don't typically talk about the Lady Sooners, but does it show some vulnerability? Does it show that maybe Kelly Maxwell just mentally is not the same as she was prior to, the last month of last season and before she left? I don't know. I do know that they're playing well. Also know we do have to give a shout out. Women's tennis, you keep cruising, keep doing your thing. We've got the 8 seed in women's basketball, and we'll either have the 13, 14 seed men's basketball, but we waited to the very end to bring up men's basketball because it is still depressing, even though we had a wonderful Twitter space, and we had one of the biggest donors for Oklahoma State on the Twitter space, and he was explaining some of the NIL and basketball and how it broke down and kind of what Mike Boynton was trying to more or less mean. And he shed some light on some of the transfers and things of that nature as well. So you can still feel the same about Mike Boynton as I do. Okay. My thought hasn't changed, but I'm able to understand there's a difference between coach and the players that deserve to get NIL. It's a hard distinction to make. So we're going to try to make those leaps, but I got some updates. Obviously, the video is a problem. We've been dealing with the internet issue. I've went through 3 modems now in the last week, and they're telling me it's got a bunch of other problems and could be a construction issue. So I'm just completely done with it. I have a fiber optic company coming in 2 days. So I will have new everything in the next couple of days. I'll completely get rid of this. And the reason I'm telling you that is if the video quality continues to be a difficulty for you, please go check out the podcast side of things. For everybody driving out there that is not used to seeing my face anyways, this is just normal. So good for you. Everybody else, when I do get this new fiber optic installed, then we have a long list of guests, including several current players. We've got some former players. We've got some former players that are going through the pro day stuff at the very moment. We've got some high school coaches, including the coach that may or may not have taught Ollie Gordon how to do stuff in high school, plus several more guests, including some coaches. So I've been waiting on this stuff to get kind of squared out. It's not quite done yet, but the fiber optic company did assure me that after checking everything out, they will be able to finish everything and be done on the 6th. Today's the 4th. Be patient. All right. You know I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. Here at Locked On Oklahoma State, you could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. All right, y'all. If you can't see my blurry face, go check out the podcast country. Okay, love you. Go bye.